What's up, everyone, and welcome down to another episode of Zetro's Toxic Vault. And today, we have an awesome Bay Area legendary producer, and I call him legendary because you guys have heard so many records that he's done, and we're going to talk about a lot of them. A lot of the major 80s bands, from hard rock to thrash metal, all used my guest that's here with me today. Would you all please welcome into the vault Mr. Michael Rosen. Good to have you, my friend.
Nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
How's it going?
It's going great.
I haven't seen you in a while, man. It's been a while since we have seen each other.
I think I was thinking about, I actually think the last time I saw you in person was when you guys were touring with Anthrax doing the Headbangers Ball.
Yeah, I'm going to say it's been maybe 30 years because I look at you now, and I'm not saying this negatively, but my picture of Michael Rosen was this long brown hair that went, long brown hair. Yep. So when I knew Michael, but I was thinking to myself, well, he's probably long brown hair no more. Most of them haven't, you know what I mean? As we've got,
I still have it.
You still have it,
but it's not long.
And it's no longer brown like it used to be. Like, look at that. They're just peppering.
Hey, I've earned every one of these gray hairs.
Because of everybody you worked with, which we're going to talk about. And again, Michael has worked on some of the legendary records that in the Bay Area has to produce. I mean, Forbidden, Testament, Las Rocket, Mordred, Vicious Rumors, to name just a few. Tesla. I mean, I'm sure I'm missing some, which we'll go in when I'm going to have you feed them all off. But like we like to do here in the vault, I like to go through my guests and find out how Michael Rosen became producer extraordinaire. So tell us where you grew up, Michael, and talk about your childhood and how you got introduced into music, and if you were a musician and what you played.
So I grew up in New York, Long Island, and Long Island. And when I was about 11 or 12, my parents moved to Dallas, and then they got divorced, and it was just a fuck fest. Texas was horrible. I hated it. And when I was about 15, we moved to Los Angeles, and didn't much care.
What year are we talking about? Not to date you, but what year?
75, I think I moved to Los Angeles. Okay. And Los Angeles was kind of a crazy place. When I moved there, it was all blonde surfer dudes, like all fucking hang ten, and all. I was just like, what the fuck? And I had played instruments all throughout my life. I started on drums when I was a kid, and I was put into a school band. I played a cello. My dad played trumpet, so I played a little trumpet. And when I was living in Texas, I picked up a guitar.
So your parents had some musical background.
My dad had a little bit, not much.
Was it brought into the house when?
Nothing at all.
Nothing at all.
My dad was kind of a funny dude, and he was like, "Oh, you want to play trumpet? Cool. Have at it." It's like he didn't show me anything. It's like,
at least he supported it, though, right?
Yeah, they supported it. And then they got divorced. I moved to Los Angeles and didn't really know what I wanted. I started playing guitar a little bit, and I was working at a 7-Eleven, and I had no idea what I wanted to do. I was like 16, 17 at that point, and I was working at a 7-Eleven, and some guy used to come in every night about 2 a.m., look like shit. He would do the same path. He would walk by the thing, and he'd go Newports, and then he'd walk around, and he'd pick up orange juice, and he'd come back, and he'd come back to the thing, and he did this night after night. And finally, one day I said, dude, you look like shit. Like, what do you do? Like, why do you do this every night? And he goes, I work at Capitol Studios. And I went, Capitol Studios? What's that? And he goes, it's a recording studio. And I went, and I had no idea what I wanted to do. I knew that I loved music. I listened to music all the time. And he said, do you want to come and check it out? And I was like, fuck yeah, dude. So he took me to Capitol Studios. And when
downstairs at Capitol Records.
Yeah, Capitol Records.
Because we were on Capitol for a few, so I've been to that room. Yeah. It's awesome.
So when the doors opened, it was like the skies and like angels came, and I just went, holy fuck. I said, this is what I'm going to do. Booker T and the MGs were recording. Wow. And when I heard the sounds and I saw all of the shit, I just went, oh, that's it. That's what I'm going to do.
So what did this guy do for the studio?
He was a maintenance engineer.
Runner guy.
Then. No, he was a maintenance engineer. He wasn't a runner. He actually like fixed all the equipment. Like if you're doing a session and your piece of gear breaks down, you'd pick up the phone and call this dude, come in and fix it or pull it out and put in a new one. And so at that time it was way harder to get into the studio business.
Sure, I'm sure.
So
it
he
was.
kind of gave me a path. He said, you have to get a degree in electronics so you can fix stuff, and then you have to do broadcasting and blah. And then high school, like I could give a shit. All I cared about was fucking Aerosmith and weed. Like I did not care about grades. I think I graduated with like a 2.0.
You made it through, baby.
I made it through. So I came up here to go to a technical college. I went to this place called Heald Engineering College,
and I learned they're not anymore, right?
They were on Van Ness in the city.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
So I learned how to fix shit and electronics and all that. And then I went from there to San Francisco State to get a degree in broadcasting. Because that was the path. That was the only way into a studio. Like you had to be able to fix shit in a studio before they would hire you. So, and then I moved to San Francisco, and I was starting to work with bands.
What year was this now, Michael?
77 is when I came up here to go to school, and then I finished Heald in 79, and then in 79 I went to San Francisco State. And the really important thing that he said to me was, besides doing, like, this was the path, he said, find a band that you love and work with them. So I met this guy, and he was crazy charismatic. Like, he was just the coolest dude, and he was in a punk rock band called The Hostages. And I went, oh, you're the guy. And I just became best friends with him, and I did everything. I was the manager, the sound guy, the roadie. I would, haul their gear. Like, we would do gigs in clubs where the PA was on the floor, so I'd have to set up the PA. And we went into all these studios around town. There was a guy named Tom Mallon back then who had a studio in San Francisco. And so I would go into the studio with these guys, and that's how I kind of got started doing punk rock bands back in 79.
What a great time, because that was the dawn of punk rock in San Francisco. Because I went to shows in the early 80s. I didn't go that early, but at 80, 81, I was already going to punk rock shows in
Dude, it was insane. It was so cool. Flipper and the Dead Kennedys, the Offs.
Wasted Youth, Minor Threat, Los Olvidados, the Fuck Ups. I mean, God, you could just go down the list.
It was so amazing to be in music back then, because everybody was down with each other.
I got goosebumps because I'm thinking of that time.
The Deaf Club on Gilmore Street or Fillmore Street. I was like, these kids are all deaf. Like, how they just like the sound of the speakers. So it was an amazing time.
The On Broadway to me was
on Broadway, yeah.
The On Broadway and the MAB.
The MAB,
that was the home.
Yeah, dude, I used to hang out at the MAB all the time. I became best friends with Electra, the sound guy. Because it's like, well, I'm not going to be in a band, so I'm going to be with
going to run with the brass.
So you were asked about music, so
yeah, what were you listening to? What got you? What were you into? Like, I heard you say Aerosmith, so obviously.
Well, that was my first band. Like when I discovered Aerosmith, I was like, that's it. Like,
so you had not heard any hard rock or really anything that caught your ear.
Well, when I lived in Texas, and they were a little bit behind the times.
That's true.
And somebody turned me on to Aerosmith, and then it was like, okay, I'd meet a kid, and it's like, are you cool enough to get down with Aerosmith? Okay, you can come to my house. And I had like a little setup like this. I had like strobe lights and black and posters. And I said, okay, I'm going to play you this record, and I would change
Aerosmith album?
The first one.
Oh my God!
And I would change the sequence because I didn't like how they put it on the record. I didn't like the sequence, so I'd play it in different order. I said, okay, so sit down, smoke a little weed, because I was into drugs super early, and I said, okay, we're going to play this record, and I'd put it in a different sequence, and so that's what I did. So but I was never in bands. So I actually
AC/DC, Led Zeppelin. Oh yeah, that opened the gate for that.
Yeah,
Ted Nugent.
Not a Ted Nugent guy.
Really?
I was more like Bad Company. Like that. Living in Texas, ZZ Top. You had to kind of get with that. So
we always had this joke about Texas because we knew that it was always behind time. We would always say, "Oh, they're still listening to Diary of a Madman down there," when it was like Ultimate Sin or Bark at the Moon. You know what I mean? Like behind time. Yeah. It was always the rap on Texas. But I don't think because of, what's funny is because of the internet that doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, no.
There's rural places in the world that'll tell you about everything. You know what I mean? So,
back then, especially in Texas, because they were super behind the times.
Yeah,
they're like, 75. I don't think they were listening to that stuff.
My first tours with Exodus were the same way. We seemed like they were not. They were just learning about things.
And then when I moved out to California, in Los Angeles was Zeppelin and, all those kind of bands, Van Halen eventually. And, so I kind of got into that. And then when I came up here, I loved punk rock, like new wave and punk rock. Like when I got here, it was like, oh, these are my people, like fucking fucked up people. Man. And in 79, oh my God.
I know.
I mean, the whole city was just going crazy. It was just like, be anything, do anything, dress the way it was insane.
It was neat. It was really cool back then.
So you were asking about music though. So I practiced guitar like 4 hours a day, when I was coming up, and I do scales and I do this. And then one day, and I was still working with bands, I went, I think it takes 8 hours, and I don't have the other 4 hours a day to do that. I said, I can do this side for 12 hours a day,
Right.
but I don't think I can keep doing that for 8 hours a day. So I just went, okay, I'm good. Like, I'm just going to do this now.
But I've always known you as an engineer, as a producer, somebody who's always done that. So I think to your advantage, that worked out well. That early on, you decided like, yo, I ain't in the front. I'm going to be in the back, and I'm cool with that. You know what I mean? Because you have a lot of creative input when you're working with bands like that. Definitely musically. I mean, even, I listen to produce, when they're, Zet, do it like this. You sure? Yeah. Okay. So a lot of producers have, a major input on how the records actually sound and the songs come out too, and I know you do as well, because you've worked hands-on with so many people. Talk about that.
So I performed once on stage. I did like this electronic music crazy fuck fest at San Francisco.
Yeah, I always need to know about that stuff.
And that one time I was so petrified being on that side.
Really?
Oh my God. I got on stage and all I was doing was that crazy distortion and feedback and just making noise. It was like this weird music concrete piece. And after that I went, yeah, I can't do that. I'm just going to be on
There's
this
a lot
side.
of people that can't. There's a lot of people that, even some of the bands come up to me and goes, I was like 60. We'll play a festival, and a lot of the festivals we play in Europe, they'll have 60,000 people.
Yeah.
Does that freak you out? It doesn't freak me out at all. But I could see to some people how that could, intimidate you.
Oh, it was crazy. It was crazy. And I said, you know what? It's cool because I went, I got it. I'm supposed to be on that side of the glass.
Well, as long as you have that. See, I'm sorry, I have to be on this side of the
and
glass.
that you know what? That's what makes you,
right,
and that's what that's what makes the relationship work. Because you go, I'm on this side, you're on that side.
That's true.
So what made me want? I love telling stories. I love putting songs. I love to help people go, well, that part was cool. That part wasn't so cool. And I'm a really good editor, so I just always have been drawn to like, well, maybe that part doesn't need to be there, or maybe we can move it there and help somebody kind of tighten up what they're doing. And because when I started, I would sit in the room and I'd watch other guys do stuff, and it's like, well, they're telling them what to do. Like they're saying, well, sing this or play that or don't do that.
Right.
And it's like, yeah, I want to do that. I want to,
produce.
Yeah, I want to produce.
Produce.
So
yeah, when we're like, recently, fans know we just finished a new Exodus album, and when I'm recording, Gary Holt has a lot of this. He's basically producing my vocals.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He's telling me how he hears it, how what to do, and we work together on the sounds that come out of my throat to make but he's producing it. He's like, nah, Zet, I don't think that one, you know what I mean? And towards maybe I'll think, oh yeah, I want to do this like that. But they don't understand that a producer's got this vision, you know what I mean? And has these amazing ears that may hear other stuff that me as a singer, I'm not listening to, because you're listening to drums and bass and guitars, and I'm not focusing necessarily on that, focusing on this. And so it takes a producer to, kind of kick your ass to get you to perform in the studio to make that finished product become what it is. How did you become comfortable with working with musicians and being able to, I guess, is negotiate the word or parlay, in a fine medium? Because not everybody's easy to work with necessarily, and not everybody hears everything a certain way.
God, I think that I was a good listener. I watched a bunch, because when I came up, I actually started doing, like, my first job was at a studio in the city called the Automat, and I was doing R&B. I was doing dance music, and I was working for guys who were producing Whitney Houston and Aretha Franklin. And I would watch them like draw this stuff out of people. Like they would set up the room with all these candles and stuff.
Really?
So oh my God, they would set up a vocal booth. So when the singer would walk in, they'd go, oh shit, that's for me. And like he would pull this stuff out of people that you just go, I want to do that. Like, how did he do that? And part of it's just like making it safe and comfortable and inspiring and all this stuff for them to be able to perform and do what they wanted to do. So that's kind of what I took from it. It's like, I want to be that guy. I want to be the person who helps you do what you do, and
Right.
Craig do what he does,
Right.
and Paul boast. Like, I sort of fancy myself as somebody who helps you bring it out. And then if you're kind of going off the reservation, then I go, no, I think you went a little too far this way. Let's go back over here. And so when I saw him do that, this guy Narda and some of the early people that I worked for, it's like, that's what I can do. Like, I can't sit down and play the drums for you, but I can tell you that I don't think I'd play that part right there. I think I would try this part. And,
Sure.
You know, so I think that was my strength, was like being able to keep people on track and clear the stuff out of the way so that they could see what they could try next. You know, because you know, when you kind of get stuck inside your head, which we all do, like I get stuck in my head as a producer.
My worst thing is I get it a certain way, and then I don't want to hear it another way. I'm like, no, that sounds good. Like, no. And you know, especially if someone else writes it, like Gary writes a good deal of the lyrics. You know, he hears what he hears in his head his way, and that whole transposition to try to figure it out. You know what I mean? How do you want it that I'm going to do it how you hear it? You know what I mean? So
that was the magic to me, like being able to help somebody, like, you know, like if you're working with a singer, like, we'll try this, and then they go, oh, you go, we'll try that, and then they give you something back, and you kind of get this great thing happen where you just kind of figure out what it should be and get the stuff out of the way that's not cool and get the stuff in there that is cool.
Right.
And then it just kind of goes boom. And then it just kind of takes on this crazy life of its own where it sort of becomes super magical. And you know.
It's always good to be open, and always good to be a student, you know, to be, you know, not afraid to learn something, or not afraid to do other things, you know, or listen to other people, not get caught in like, you know, how long I've been doing this kind of thing, you know, not be go, what? No, you hear it this way? Okay, let me try that and see what happens.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's funny, like I met Dave Lombardo, which was like a huge thrill for me. And I said, well, so what do you listen to, dude? Like, who do you listen to? He goes, I listen to jazz. And I'm like, what the fuck? And he goes, if I listen to other metal drummers, I steal shit from them. He goes, I'm going to steal stuff from jazz things that nobody's ever heard. So, you know, you kind of just bring in other stuff and open your mind to things. And
sure.
You know.
What do you listen to now, Michael? Just out of question. Do you listen to hard rock metal anymore, since you were such a mainstay in it? I mean, will you put it on?
Oh, yeah, totally. I'll listen to, you know, the thing that I kind of, and maybe I'll piss people off, I hope not, sorry.
I hope you do.
Is I'm not down with the math metal. Like, you know, the super programmed drums and, you know, stuff that's like, that they can't play. I just... They look like they're doing math formulas to me on stage. I went to see this band recently, or before the lockdown, and I'm watching these guys, and it's like, they're not having fun up there. They're just two guys just going, it's like, they're not even smiling. Like, what the fuck?
Well, my whole thing is like, I want a song, okay? Please play a song.
Amen.
I want to catch a groove. It could be heavy as shit as long as it's a song. If you're just up there noodling, and maybe it's cool and very technical and very difficult to do, I'm going to get bored in about 7 minutes.
Dude, you have to have fun. So this guy, they took me backstage. So what'd you think? I was like, yeah, it's cool. I said, and I was talking to the one dude, and I said, it's not like back in the day, like you guys and Testament. You guys had such joy and such fun up there.
Do.
I mean, and it was technical, but it's like you guys were smiling and laughing and fucking bringing all this energy. It's like I can't be bothered with some of this new stuff. It's just way too fucking
too technical.
I did one metal record a while, I don't know, 5 years ago.
Yeah, you don't do much metal anymore, do you?
People don't call me. You know, it's not just not, I don't know, for whatever reason. You know, it's funny. I was thinking about it, and I went, wow, he's going to just ask me about metal. And it's like,
but I'm not, though.
I think one of the blessings about my career is that I just kind of like followed the stream. Like I did metal for like 5 years solid. Solid. And then all of a sudden I started doing punk rock. I did Rancid and Less Than Jake and AFI. And it's like, okay, I'm going to do this for a little bit. And then I'm going to do this. And it's like, it's been cool. I've been kind of able to do a bunch of different things.
But I think that's great because it doesn't get you locked into one genre, and also doesn't get you bored. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, I would think if you did metal constantly, and don't get me wrong, guys, and you guys know I love it. It's my life. But I mean, for somebody like yourself, man, it would blow you out after a while. It would be kind of refreshing to work with some.
Well, it's like I was saying about Dave. It's like, you know, you bring something from this genre and you put it in this. Like, I remember back when I was doing metal stuff, like hardcore, like I would mention country, and people would go, oh, country music. And it was like, they're doing metal without the distortion. Like some of those dudes in Nashville,
I
the
agree.
way they play, it's like
I
if
know.
you put distortion on that, they could be in Slayer. Like right now, that guy could be playing solos. So kind of being able to bring other influences into stuff that people don't recognize, it's like, yeah, that's cool. You know, I think
is cool.
I think that's what it should have been. People were a little bit not as cool with it back in the day. Like I said, if you mentioned country records back then, they're like, what?
You know how many metal guys, deep metal, Cannibal Corpse Grinder, my bass player Jack, love country music. Jack lives in Nashville now.
Oh, does he?
Yeah, and he loves it, and it's all. But you know what? I had to go out there for a benefit last year that I did, and there was country guys coming and playing on the benefit, hella metal stuff. So a lot of the country guys are metalheads.
Oh,
totally.
dude, they look like metal guys.
They are.
If you look at them now, like you'll see some country dude. And you look at the guys in the background, it's like, what the fuck?
Believe me, they are. They're
yeah.
just musicians that play any type of shit, and they'll play metal one night, they'll play country, but their heart's maybe into metal, but they'll do it. So.
So
you know,
I like that, and I like the fact that I've been able to do that. You know what's really funny, because I know you had Lars here.
He's the greatest.
I
love you, Lars Fredrickson.
When I started doing Rancid, they gave me such shit about the metal stuff. They're like everything would be like, oh, can we try this? And they're like, that's from your metal thing. It's just like, dude, you love that shit. And now Lars is just completely out of the closet. He's just fucking taking his kids to Maiden.
Oh, come on. His kids are the biggest metalheads in the world.
God.
They're not even punk rockers. They're metalheads, totally.
Yeah, I've had his kid in my studio.
I know. I send him some swag and stuff. I love him. He puts pictures of him up there. Yeah. And I talk to him about them. They're players as well. So you know, he brought his kids like I brought mine up right. He's brought them up the right way. I mean, Slayer's like, I think one of them is his favorite band, right? And Gary took care of him, you know, on one of those things, which is really cool. No.
So it's funny, like now looking at him, like,
right?
And he would never cop to it. It's like, dude, we didn't do. I said, you totally did that. It's like, so you worked with Testament, huh? Like, you know, that's not very punk rock. It's like, fuck you. It's all the same, dude. So.
Wow, it's funny. So hey, we're gonna talk about Michael's bands that he works with when we come back with Michael Rosen.